All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to False Count Radio. As always, I am your host, the Pacific Coast player, JT Evans, and tonight we have a very exclusive interview as I would like to welcome on the line with me, Diane Von Hoffman, a.k.a. Moondog Fifi. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, actually, and, we've got a long list of questions, so if you don't mind, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, let's go.
Growing up, were you a professional wrestling fan? If so, who'd you look up to?
Oh, my gosh, yes. Actually, it's a kind of long history, so I'll make it brief. My brothers were high school amateur wrestlers. I had 3 bigger brothers. And I was the guinea pig. I was a cheerleader. I was a swimmer, very much the athlete, so they used me as the guinea pig. That was one. Then my dad, unfortunately, passed away when I was 10 of cancer, so we watched it from 7 to 8, and believe it or not, Jerry Jarrett, Tojo. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, so, we had the Memphis territory back then. So I grew up with those people. And actually, Jerry Jarrett was my hero. I don't know why, but I guess it was a blonde thing.
Now, we actually just interviewed Jerry a couple days ago. Great interview. Now, I got to ask you, was wrestling your first career choice? Obviously, you said, you were obviously in sports, so was wrestling the first career choice? If not, what was?
Well, it was mine. It wasn't my mother's. We hate it. She doesn't talk about it. Nobody can. To this day, she does not know I'm still in business. I think she does, but she doesn't. Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. My first, actually, I was a cosmetologist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so go figure.
It's an interesting.
Beauty queen dropout.
Definitely an interesting transition. Now, you've been in the business for 30 years. Obviously, the training was a lot rougher back in the day. Can you tell our listeners who trained you and what your training was like?
Well, I started off just on weekends, as some people are just now weekend warriors. They don't know what the real living in wrestling is. I'll just leave it at that. My training, I started out with Dale Mann when I was 17, actually. I know that's underage, but I started there on the weekends. Finally, I wrote Moolah a letter, sent her a picture, told her I wanted to wrestle, Everybody wants to be a wrestler. Well, until you actually get in there, into her, I'll call it the prison, camp, okay? It's a totally different ballgame. We train 3 times a day. If you didn't get something right, you'd do it until you got it right. And, of course, once you got it right, it didn't hurt. Then I worked all night at a restaurant, and I was a waitress all night at a International House of Pancakes in Columbia, South Carolina. I trained with the best of the best, Leilani Todd, Joyce Grable, Judy Martin, BJ Clark, she's rest in peace, Betty Clark. Moolah would get in there with me. I don't know why, but yeah, 100, probably 1,000 drop kicks until I got it right. So, like I said, today it's a big difference. It's a big difference than what I'm sure people go through today.
And, of course, nowadays you've got promoters throwing people in the ring after 6 days of training.
Exactly. And the guy just died. Come on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now I got to ask you, everybody gets butterflies going out to the ring. What was going through your mind when you went through the curtain for your first match?
Well, I was petrified, first of all, because Moolah was my, I was her partner. So that was even worse. I'll never forget it. We wrestled with Carol Smith and Jill Fontaine. I know some people don't realize who they are, but there were, ladies that, of course, were in my group, and they were the little skinny girls. But going into the ring, of course, I was nervous. I actually even tripped over my cape going out. And she just looked back at me like, oh, my God, turned her head and walked on. So if that tells you how my first day was, it was wonderful.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, it's not funny. It's not funny.
No, I'm sure
I'm going in Boston Gardens with 80,000 people. So, yeah, it's kind of like embarrassing / petrifying / I don't know what.
Now you brought up Jerry Jarrett, and, of course, you got a run in the United States Wrestling Association. What are your memories of being in the promotion?
Good and bad, or what do you want? You want
just
truth or what?
Yeah, just give our listeners, what you felt was the good and the bad of being there. Obviously there's politics in every promotion, but what did you see while you were there?
Well, once again, even, you know, women have had body issues their whole life. And, of course, in this business, as anything else, it's all about what you look like, blah, blah, blah. You know, the skinnier girls that couldn't work got the push. They didn't understand that not all men, and this is for everybody, not all men like skinny women. All my fans like big girls with big legs, as you can see today. But anyway, I'll go back to the USWA. I first came in as Flea. There was a guy out of Texas that I did a thing with him and Jimmy Valiant, good old handsome Jimmy. After that, evidently he got into it in the back. I guess he spit in the fountain, and Lawler didn't like it, and next thing I know, don't come back, we're not going to be able to use you. So, that's that part of it. Then, Larry, gosh. They're all thinking about me today, I guess. Larry, Spot, and Richard Lee called me, and they were doing an angle. They were the Moondogs, and they, of course, went to the litter to get a female pup. And they came up with Fifi because they thought, you know, little petite, not knowing what they were going to get. So when I hit the ring, they found out what they got.
Okay. Now, I got to ask you, you know, you kind of brought up the idea of, you know, the litter and the Moondog Fifi. Were you against it or all for it from the beginning?
Oh, I was all for it. I mean, it was different. It was, they didn't have any bigger women in the sport. You know, Miss Jacqueline, I mean, she was still small, but she was cut. And then Lauren Davenport, you know, all the girls were very, very, you know, petite. And I'm not, by any stretch of imagination, petite. But it went over well. I mean, to me, you know, when Jerry Jarrett calls you at home and tells you, you know, that was the best night that they had heard, you know, they shaved my head inside of Memphis Coliseum. Oh, my God. Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett tried to hold me down, but I put up a pretty good fight. They shaved my head. Yeah, it was the dog's belt and my hair versus Lawler and Jeff Jarrett.
Now, what are your memories of wrestling Jacqueline for the USWA title?
Jacqueline's she's a good wrestler. She just, when the crowd gets into it, she really gets into it. I mean, we had a kind of a knockdown drag out. You know, let's just put it this way: I don't like blood and bruises on me, so let's put it this way: we had our knockdown dragouts. But her and they were giving her the push, of course, because she was, you know, petite, strong, especially a black woman. You know, there weren't many around.
Mm-hmm. Now, you got to wrestle in Japan.
Right.
Obviously, the scene is a lot different down there, and they are more about the style of wrestling than they are characters. You got any stories you can share about your time in Japan?
Yeah, I've got several. Well, actually, after I went, going back to Moolah days, I was actually, when I got back from New York, supposed to catch a flight and leave. Well, no one knew. She was starving me. I mean, Carol and Jill, would tell the other guys. And actually, that time I met Larry. Well, I knew Larry from Louisville Gardens even before I ever wrestled. And when I showed up, he was like, "What are you doing up here?" And I said, "I told you I was going to wrestle." He said, "You're the first person that ever told me they were going to do something and actually did it." Because you know how it is. Everybody says they want to do something, but to actually go through it and survive Moolah's camp was a story in itself. But going back to that, we were in Atlantic City, and, of course, she was charging me so much a mile, and I found out I ended up owing her money after all these shows. Don't ask me how, okay? I don't know how I owed her money. Her so-called boyfriend at the time, I guess, spent most of the money. We didn't have any money. I called home. I told my mom. I mean, I was, 18. I'm like, I'm up here broke, got no money, got no way. She said, get back to South Carolina, pack your bags, and come home. So that's what I did. I drove 8 hours home. My phone was, and of course there weren't cell phones back then, okay? So she's calling my mother. My mom was telling Moolah, you're not going to treat my daughter like this. you know, I got back to South Carolina. They're, you know, oh, you've lost weight. I'm like, yeah, you'd lose weight too if you were being starved. I mean, she literally would not let me eat. She wanted me to lose weight. She didn't understand that was an unhealthy way to lose weight. So finally I got on the phone with her and, you know, did Leilani do something to you? I'm like, Leilani? She didn't do anything to me. It was you. I said, I don't know how you expect me to be healthy and lose weight and you starved me to death. Oh, hon, I didn't mean it. I mean, I'm like, what do you mean you didn't mean it? You know, you did what you did. People were sneaking me in food. Larry and some Japanese guy, gosh, I'm trying to think I can't remember his name. He's a big star over there now. But, so that's the part about going to Japan. So I finally get on the plane, you know, she begged me, I'm under contract, this, that, and the other. So I got on the plane. I called her when I got to Atlanta. She's like, only call me collect if you're in Atlanta, because, you know, she wasn't going to pay for the call. Then I got to Columbia, stayed the night there at her house, and she shot me at the airport. So I got to Japan, you know, 18 years old, had no clue. This guy picks me up, didn't speak English. I'm on the wrong side of the road. I, like, closed my eyes. I said, I'm going to die. You know, I'm just going to die. So they finally got me there. The show was like an hour away from Tokyo. And I walk in to the arena, and there's women in the ring dancing. And I'm like, am I at the right place? This is just, you know, I mean, you have to realize, if you've never been over there and never understood it or gone through the experience, it's a total different scenario over there. They do intermission with the female wrestlers actually singing and dancing. And Mimi Hagiwara and Hori Ayumi, actually ones that were in all the marbles, were, you know, very much on top there. And so that was my first match. You know, I got in, got dressed, and then, you know, got with Leilani. And, of course, Lula had called and blamed her for everything. And when I told her I took up for her, she actually couldn't believe it. She actually, and I'm like, well, no. She said, I'll tell her, you know, the truth is the truth. And she's like, yeah, but was she mad? I'm like, I don't care if she was mad or not, you know. I said, you didn't have anything to do with it. So her whole trip over there was terrible, which, you know, I hate. And I wish I could find Leilani today, but, you know, that's one of those things I can't, you know, I can't find her.